Hello,
alive.
we were talking about COVID exposures, and I was about to say that we got some kismet shit going on. So when we refied the house, it was like we want to spend a couple $100 on this and that, and the house needs love. I think our biggest expense at this point is we got good click together flooring for the dining room so that I don't have to deal with a carpeted dining room anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And that was expensive because, I mean, the cheap shit wouldn't last with the amount of traffic that we have. Besides, I hate it. I hate the cheap shit that's printed so you can see the pattern repeat like fucking artifacts. But handyman, yeah, the our neighbors across the alley were getting work done on a tree, and even though it wasn't even a thing we were going to spend money on, I went out and said, hey, we've got like a couple of really dead limbs because of that blizzard dangling off of our ash tree. Is there any way, since you're here, you could give me a quote? And they were like, oh yeah, $200, and we'll also pull the spruces away from your house a bit because they were overhanging the eaves. And it was like, yes, please. Dude went up there like a lumberjack. Okay, the ash tree's 40 feet tall, and the top is what snapped and was dangling very dangerously. At least I thought it was dangerous. Jason thought it would probably be fine. There's not a lot of people back there, but you know someone would be walking their dog in that alley or something and get smooshed. Anyway, dude went up there with a rope around his waist and a chainsaw.
All right, sir.
I'm like, for $200, I wouldn't do that. He was a lumberjack. I would have praised him more if I had known his native tongue.
Did you know what it was?
It sounded Spanish, but I wouldn't I make no assumptions. And he had like a crew, right? Oh, and the tree across the alley was getting a huge amount of pruning done, and it's a gorgeous, I think it's a cedar, like a western cedar, the kind that have the uprights.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, we have a woodworker over here. You want to just toss us any pieces that are big enough to use? And they were like, oh yeah, hell yeah. So they just tossed. So we've got like half a dozen stumps of cedar, and they're huge and really like gorgeous, and I'm excited about that.
That is very exciting.
It is.
Not related to woodworking. I need to check. So I have some bad news and some good news and some news that may be good, but we're not sure yet. So the bad news is Dad loaned out his copy of Lord of the Rings. So I thought he had one, and he does, but it's not here. The good news is I have my Kindle. The we don't know yet news is I don't know if it's charged.
Right.
So we're about to find out.
Okay. If it's not charged, I'll do the reading tonight. I can do that. That is not charged.
That is not charged. I'm so sorry.
You didn't bring a charger with you?
I did, but I don't know where it is. But also it needs to like charge up to the point where I can turn it on.
Right.
But I promise to read on Wednesday.
It's all good. I'm pretty.
You're always pretty.
Aw. I did a I don't have my ring light out today, but will live. Needs, must, and all that. There we go. I have done a shit ton of painting. Oh, yeah, I found all the footage for the Solstice Badger Advent calendar that I made last year. So that's the video that I should have posted last night to stay consistent, but I might post it tonight. Maybe tomorrow. I hope tonight. I tell myself Monday.
Oh, actually, we might have. Hang on. Dad is showing me a thing. Hang on.
Hey, Dad.
Oh, I was muted, but I'll turn the camera towards him when he comes back in. He brought Fellowship, and I said I need the 2 towers, so he's looking.
Okay.
So we might be able to trade off at some point if he can find it.
Does he know that I have his old 3-in-1 volume paperback?
I don't think so, but I'm sure he'd be pleased to know that it's in a good home and
Safe
not
place.
like in
It's
the
on the
garage.
fire shelf even. We keep it on the fire shelf.
On the what now?
The fire shelf is like a 3 or 4 foot stretch of bookshelf that's got all of my signed stuff, all of my irreplaceable books, everything that I would grab if there was a
Oh,
fire.
if there was a fire. Oh, I get it now. I was like, do you have a fireproof bookshelf? What is
No,
that?
that would be great.
Aha! We do have a book. Excellent. Also,
Hey, Dad. How are you?
he can't hear you. Robin says, "How are you?"
I'm doing good. Making pizza.
Aww.
Read your book.
I will read my book.
Excellent.
I tried eating wheat last week. I was like, maybe, did I tell you about this?
Yeah, and it was not good.
No, it went very poorly. So, tonight I made breaded chicken nuggies, homemade chicken nuggies. Chicken nuggies! And we happened to have almond and rice flour, so I just made a mixture of that to coat them, and everybody loved it. So while it's not low starch and it's certainly not low fat, it is without the glyphosates, I think. I'm pretty sure they don't like shock rice crops or almond trees.
Not that I know of.
And I'm 90% sure it's the glyphosates that my body hates. The Roundup.
Yeah.
And now my body, even if I'm eating organic flour, my body recognizes it as what carries the poisons and reacts accordingly. That's my theory.
Tis a theory.
Oh.
All right. Oh, someone did some underlining in this copy.
Oh, ha ha ha. This is going to be Rhenium. Rhenium is a hobbit with lots and lots of hair. Rhenium is very difficult to find and isolate, so she embodies elusiveness.
All right.
It would look a little Merida if I made it redhead, but I don't think I will. I think we'll go for like shades of brown.
The only thing I would say with that is it may blend into your background.
Yeah. But we've already got a redheaded hobbit in at the top of this column, manganese. So
Blonde?
Blonde. White blonde. That helps too because blonde hobbits were rare up until 1420, so Tolkien had to appreciate it. It's used in jet turbines. Very, very high strength, heat resistant. I have utterly destroyed my favorite paintbrushes, and that's sad.
That is sad. Did you leave them in the paint water?
Always. I take very poor care of my paintbrushes.
Ah, yes.
And now they're fluffy.
That'll happen.
Yeah. But anyway, we'll make blonde hair happen. We have the power. And where were we in the story?
They just climbed down the cliff in the Emyn Muil.
They did.
And Frodo said, I don't think we'll try the marshes by the light of half a moon.
Yes, thank you.
Since I know you can't see it, the title for this episode is Frodo and Sam Are in a Bad Place. And the subtitle is Emotionally, but also they're in the Emyn Muil. Let's see. Under the first shadows of night, they started out on the next stage of their journey. After a while, Sam turned and looked back the way they had come. The mouth of the gully was a black notch in the dim cliff. "I'm glad we've got the rope," he said. "We've set a little puzzle for that footpad, anyhow. He can try his nasty flappy feet on those ledges." They picked their steps away from the skirts of the cliff, among a wilderness of boulders and rough stones, wet and slippery with the heavy rain. The ground still fell away sharply. They had not gone very far when they came upon a great fissure that yawned suddenly black before their feet. It was not wide, but it was too wide to jump across in the dim light. They thought they could hear water gurgling in its depths. It curved away on their left, northward, back towards the hills, and so barred their road in that direction, at any rate while darkness lasted. "We had better try our way back southwards along the line of the cliff, I think," said Sam. "We might find some nook there, or even a cave or something." "I suppose so," said Frodo. "I'm tired, and I don't think I can scramble among stones much longer tonight. Though I grudge the delay. I wish there was a clear path in front of us. Then I'd go on till my legs gave way." They did not find the going any easier at the broken feet of the Emyn Muil. Nor did Sam find any nook or hollow to shelter in. Only bare stony slopes frowned over by the cliff, which now rose again, higher and more sheer as they went back. In the end, worn out, they just cast themselves on the ground under the lee of a boulder lying not far from the foot of the precipice. There for some time they sat huddled mournfully together in the cold stony night, while sleep crept upon them in spite of all they could do to hold it off. The moon now rode high and clear. Its thin white light lit up the faces of the rocks, and drenched the cold frowning walls of the cliff, turning all the wide looming darkness into a chill pale grey, scored with black shadows. "Well," said Frodo, standing up and drawing his cloak more closely round him, "you sleep for a bit, Sam, and take my blanket. I'll walk up and down on sentry for a while." Suddenly he stiffened, and stooping he gripped Sam by the arm. "What's that?" he whispered. "Look over there on the cliff." Sam looked and breathed in sharply through his teeth. He said, "That's what it is. It's that Gollum. Snakes and adders, and to think I thought that we'd puzzle him with our bit of a climb. Look at him, like a nasty crawling spider on a wall." Down the face of a precipice, sheer and almost smooth it seemed in the pale moonlight, a small black shape was moving with its thin limbs splayed out. Maybe its soft clinging hands and toes were finding crevices and holds that no hobbit could ever have seen or used, but it looked as if it was just creeping down on sticky pads, like some large prowling thing of insect kind, and it was coming down head first, as if it was smelling its way. Now and again it lifted its head slowly, turning it right back on its long skinny neck, and the hobbits caught a glimpse of two small pale gleaming lights, its eyes that blinked at the moon for a moment, and then were quickly lidded again. I think the coming down head first is the creepiest part of that.
Yep. Oh, yeah.
"Do you think he can see us?" said Sam. "I don't know," said Frodo quietly, "but I think not. It is hard even for friendly eyes to see these elven cloaks. I cannot see you in the shadow even at a few paces. And I've heard that he doesn't like sun or moon." "Then why is he coming down just here?" asked Sam. "Quietly, Sam," said Frodo. "He can smell us, perhaps. And he can hear as keen as elves, I believe. I think he has heard something now, our voices probably. We did a lot of shouting away back there, and we were talking far too loudly until a minute ago." "Well, I'm sick of him," said Sam. "He's come once too often for me. I'm going to have a word with him if I can. I don't suppose we could give him the slip now, anyway." Drawing his gray hood well over his face, Sam crept stealthily towards the cliff. "Careful," whispered Frodo, coming behind. "Don't alarm him. He's much more dangerous than he looks." How much more, like, again, crawling down a sheer cliff head first and occasionally turning his head like 180 degrees.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, how much more dangerous did you want him to look? The black crawling shape was now 3/4 of the way down, and perhaps 50 feet or less above the cliff's foot. Crouching stone still in the shadow of a large boulder, the hobbits watched him. He seemed to have come to a difficult passage or to be troubled about something. They could hear him snuffling, and now and again there was a harsh hiss of breath that sounded like a curse. He lifted his head, and they thought they heard him spit. Then he moved on again. Now they could hear his voice creaking and whistling. Okay, we talked last time about Gollum's voice, and I forget what you said.
I just said that I give him kind of a whimpery voice because I'm not up for Andy Serkis levels of performance, so it would be like, they found us. That's a
I don't even know. I don't even think I'm going to go that deep. Cautious, my precious. More haste, less speed. We mustn't risk our neck, must we, precious? No, precious. Gollum. He lifted his head again, blinked at the moon, and quickly shut his eyes. We hate it, he hissed. Nasty, nasty, shivery light it is. It spies on us, precious. It hurts our eyes. He was getting lower now, and the hisses became sharper and clearer. Where is it? Where is it? My precious, my precious. It's ours, it is. We wants it. The thieves, the filthy little thieves. Where are they with my precious? Curse them. We hates them. Doesn't sound as if he knew we were here, does it? Whispered Sam. What's his precious? Does he mean that... Shh! Breathed Frodo. He's getting near now, near enough to hear a whisper. Indeed, Gollum had suddenly paused again, and his large head on its scrawny neck was lolling from side to side as if he was listening. His pale eyes were half unlidded. Sam restrained himself, though his fingers were twitching. His eyes, filled with anger and disgust, were fixed on the wretched creature as he now began to move again, still whispering and hissing to himself. At last he was no more than a dozen feet from the ground, right above their heads. From that point there was a sheer drop, for the cliff was slightly undercut, and even Gollum could not find a hold of any kind. He seemed to be trying to twist round so as to go legs first, when suddenly, with a shrill whistling shriek, he fell. As he did so, he curled his legs and arms up round him, like a spider whose descending thread is snapped. Sam was out of his hiding in a flash, and crossed the space between him and the cliff foot in a couple of leaps. Before Gollum could get up, he was on top of him. But he found Gollum more than he bargained for, even taken like that, suddenly off his guard after a fall. Before Sam could get a hold, long legs and arms were wound round him, pinning his arms in a clinging grip, soft but horribly strong, was squeezing him like slowly tightening cords. Clammy fingers were feeling for his throat. Then sharp teeth bit into his shoulder. All he could do was butt his hard head round sideways into the creature's face. Gollum hissed and spat, but he did not let go. Things would have gone ill with Sam if he had been alone, but Frodo sprang up and drew Sting from its sheath. With his left hand he drew back Gollum's head by his thin lank hair, stretching his long neck, and forcing his pale, venomous eyes to stare up at the sky. Let go, Gollum, he said. This is Sting. You have seen it before once upon a time. Let go, or you'll feel it this time. I'll cut your throat. Gollum collapsed and went as loose as wet string. Sam got up, fingering his shoulder. His eyes smoldered with anger, but he could not avenge himself. His miserable enemy lay groveling on the stones, whimpering. Don't hurt us. Don't let them hurt us, precious. They won't hurt us, will they, nice little hobbitses? We didn't mean no harm, but they jumps on us like cats on poor mices, they did, precious. And we're so lonely, Gollum. We'll be nice to them, very nice, if they'll be nice to us, won't we? Yes, yes. I'm creeping myself out with this voice.
Good. That shows that it's working.
Well, what's to be done with it? Said Sam. Tie it up so as it can't come sneaking after us no more, I say. But that would kill us, whimpered Gollum. Cool little hobbitses. Tie us up in the cold, hard lands and leave us. Oh, oh. Sobs welled up in his gobbling throat. No, said Frodo. If we kill him, we must kill him outright. But we can't do that, not as things are. Poor wretch. He has done us no harm. Oh, hasn't he? Said Sam, rubbing his shoulder. Anyway, he meant to, and he
What do you
means
mean,
to.
we, white man?
Right? He's done us no harm. Like, bitch! What? Am I a joke to you?
Chopped liver. Chopped potatoes.
Anyway, he meant to, and he means to, I'll warrant. Throttle us in our sleep, that's his plan. Yeah, I dare say, said Frodo. But what he means to do is another matter. He paused for a while in thought. Gollum lay still, but stopped whimpering. Sam stood glowering over him. It seemed to Frodo then that he heard, quite plainly but far off, voices out of the past. What a pity Bilbo did not stab the vile creature when he had a chance. Pity? It was pity that stayed his hand. Pity and mercy, not to strike without need. I do not feel any pity for Gollum. He deserves death. Deserves death? I dare say he does. Many that live deserve death, and some that die deserve life. Can you give that to them? And be not too eager to deal out death in the name of justice, fearing for your own safety. Even the wise cannot see all ends. Very well, he answered aloud, lowering his sword. But still, as I am afraid. And yet, as you see, I will not touch the creature. For now that I see him, I do pity him. Sam stared at his master, who seemed to be speaking to someone who was not there. Did I mention that Frodo's in a bad place?
Yeah.
Gollum lifted his head. Yes, wretched we are, precious, he whined. Misery, misery. Hobbits won't kill us, nice hobbits. No, we won't, said Frodo. But we won't let you go, either. You're full of wickedness and mischief, Gollum. You will have to come with us, that's all, while we keep an eye on you. But you must help us if you can. One good turn deserves another. Yes, yes, indeed, said Gollum, sitting up. Nice hobbits. We will come with them, find them safe paths in the dark, yes, we will. And where are they going in these cold, hard lands, we wonders? Yes, we wonders. He looked up at them, and a faint light of cunning and eagerness flickered for a second in his pale, blinking eyes. Sam scowled at him and sucked his teeth. He seemed to sense that there was something odd about his master's mood, and that the matter was beyond argument. All the same, he was amazed at Frodo's reply. Frodo looked straight into Gollum's eyes, which flinched and twisted away. You know that, or you guess well enough, Smeagol, he said, quietly and sternly. We are going to Mordor, of course. And you know the way there, I believe.
Mordor. Going to Mordor.
Mordor together. Whether you like it or not, because I have a sword. Ah, said Gollum, covering his ears with his hands, as if such frankness and the open speaking of the names hurt him. We guessed, yes, we guessed, he whispered. And we didn't want them to go, did we? No, precious. Not the nice hobbits. Ashes, ashes and dust and thirst there is. And pits, pits, pits. And orcs, thousands of orcs. Nice hobbits mustn't go to those places. So you have been there, Frodo insisted. And you're being drawn back there, aren't you? Yes, yes. No, shrieked Gollum. Once, by accident it was, wasn't it, precious? Yes, by accident. But we won't go back. No, no. Then suddenly his voice and language changed, and he sobbed in his throat and spoke, but not to them. Leave me alone. Go. You hurt me. Oh, my poor hands. Go. I don't want to come back. I can't find it. I'm tired. We can't find it. Go. Go. No, nowhere. They're always awake. Dwarves, men, and elves. Terrible elves with bright eyes. I can't find it. Ugh. He got up and clenched his long hand into a bony, fleshless knot, shaking it towards the east. We won't, he cried. Not for you. Then he collapsed again. I feel like I took that a little telenovela, but we're going with it.
Yeah.
Go. Oh, he whimpered with his face to the ground. Don't look at us. Go away. Go to sleep. He will not go away or go to sleep at your command, Smeagol, said Frodo. But if you really wish to be free of him again, then you must help me. And that, I fear, means finding us a path towards him. But you need not go all the way, not beyond the gates of his land. Gollum sat up again and looked at him under his eyelids. He's over there, he cackled. Always there. Orcs will take you all the way. Easy to find orcs east of the river. Don't ask Smeagol. Poor, poor Smeagol. He went away long ago. They took his precious. He's lost now. Perhaps we'll find him again if you come with us, said Frodo. No, no, never. He's lost his precious, said Gollum. Get up, said Frodo. Gollum stood up and backed away against the cliff. Now, said Frodo, can you find a path easier by day or by night? We're tired, but if you choose the night, we'll start tonight. Big lights hurt our eyes, they do, Gollum whined. Not under the white face, not yet. But we'll go behind the hills soon, yes. Rest a bit first, nice hobbits. Then sit down, said Frodo, and don't move. The hobbits seated themselves beside him, one on either side, with their backs to the stony wall, resting their legs. There was no need for any arrangement by word. They knew that they must not sleep for a moment. Slowly the moon went by. Shadows fell down from the hills, and all grew dark before them. The stars grew thick and bright in the sky above. No one stirred. Gollum sat with his legs drawn up, knees under chin, flat hands and feet splayed on the ground, his eyes closed. But he seemed tense, as if thinking or listening. Frodo looked across at Sam. Their eyes met, and they understood. They relaxed, leaning their heads back, and shutting their eyes, or seeming to. Soon the sound of their soft breathing could be heard. Gollum's hands twitched a little. Hardly perceptibly, his head moved to the left and the right, and first one eye and then the other opened a slit. The hobbits made no sign. Suddenly, with startling agility and speed, straight off the ground with a jump like a grasshopper or a frog, Gollum bounded forward into the darkness. But that was just what Frodo and Sam had expected. Sam was on him before he had gone 2 paces after his spring. Frodo, coming behind, grabbed his leg and threw him. Your rope might prove useful again, Sam, he said. Sam got out the rope. And where were you off to in the cold, hard lands, Mr. Gollum? He growled. We wonders, to find some of your orc friends, I warrant, you nasty, treacherous creature. It's round your neck this rope ought to go, and a tight noose, too. Gollum lay quiet and tried no further tricks. He did not answer Sam, but gave him a swift, venomous look. All we need...
Uh-oh, you froze.
Did I freeze or did you freeze?
I guess we'll have to find out later.
Well, okay. What was the last thing you heard?
Frodo was saying something about the rope, I think. Damn it. I knew until you asked.
It's been a minute. Well, I can't help that.
Just keep going from where you're at. I'm cool.
Okay. Gollum had just given Sam a swift, venomous look.
There we go. That's the spot.
Well, that's where he was.
Oh, good.
All we need is something to keep a hold on him, said Frodo. We want him to walk, so it's no good tying his legs. Or his arms, he seems to use them nearly as much. Tie one end to his ankle and keep a grip on the other end. He stood over Gollum while Sam tied the knot. The result surprised them both. Gollum began to scream, a thin, tearing sound, very horrible to hear. He writhed and tried to get his mouth to his ankle and bite the rope. He kept on screaming. At last Frodo was convinced that he really was in pain, but it could not be from the knot. He examined it and found that it was not too tight, indeed hardly tight enough. Sam was gentler than his words. What's the matter with you? He said. If you will try to run away, you must be tied, but we don't wish to hurt you. It hurts us, hissed Gollum. It freezes, it bites. Elves twisted it, curse them. Nasty, cruel hobbits. That's why we tries to escape. Of course it is, precious. We guessed they were cruel hobbits. They visit elves, fierce elves with bright eyes. Take it off us, it hurts us. No, I will not take it off you, said Frodo. Not unless. He paused a moment in thought. Not unless there is any promise you can make that I can trust. We will swear to do what he wants. Yes, yes, said Gollum, still twisting and grabbing at his ankle. It hurts us. Swear, said Frodo. Smeagol, said Gollum, suddenly and clearly, opening his eyes wide and staring at Frodo with a strange light. Smeagol will swear on the precious. Frodo drew himself up, and again Sam was startled by his words and his stern voice. On the precious? How dare you, he said. Think. One ring to rule them all, and in the darkness bind them. Would you commit your promise to that, Smeagol? It will hold you. But it is more treacherous than you are. It may twist your words. Beware. Gollum cowered. On the precious, he repeated. And what would you swear? Asked Frodo. To be very, very good, said Gollum. Then crawling to Frodo's feet, he groveled before him, whispering hoarsely. A shudder ran over him, as if the words shook his very bones with fear. Smeagol will swear never, never to let him have it. Never. Smeagol will save it, but he must swear on the precious. No, not on it, said Frodo, looking down at him with stern pity. All you wish is to see it and touch it if you can, though you know it would drive you mad. Not on it. Swear by it if you will, for you know where it is. Yes, you know, Smeagol. It is before you. For a moment it appeared to Sam that his master had grown and Gollum had shrunk. A tall, stern shadow, a mighty lord who hid his brightness in grey cloud, and at his feet a little whining dog. Yet the two were in some way akin and not alien. They could reach one another's minds. Gollum raised himself and began pawing at Frodo, fawning at his knees. Down, down, said Frodo. Now speak your promise. We promises. Yes, I promise, said Gollum. I will serve the master of the precious. Good master, good Smeagol. Gollum, Gollum. Suddenly he began to weep and bite at his ankle again. Take the rope off, Sam, said Frodo. Reluctantly, Sam obeyed. At once Gollum got up and began prancing about, like a whipped cur whose master has patted it. From that moment a change, which lasted for some time, came over him. He spoke with less hissing and whining, and he spoke to his companions direct, not to his precious self. He would cringe and flinch if they stepped near him or made any sudden movement, and he avoided the touch of their elven cloaks. But he was friendly, and indeed pitifully anxious to please. He would cackle with laughter and caper if any jest was made, or even if Frodo spoke kindly to him, and weep if Frodo rebuked him. Sam said little to him of any sort. He suspected him more deeply than ever, and if possible liked the new Gollum, the Smeagol, less than the old. Well, Gollum, or whatever it is we're to call you, he said, now for it. The moon's gone and the night's going. We'd better start. Yes, yes, agreed Gollum, skipping about. Off we go. There's only one way across between the north end and the south end. I found it, I did. Orcs don't use it. Orcs don't know it. Orcs don't cross the marshes. They go round for miles and miles. Very lucky you came this way. Very lucky you found Smeagol. Yes. Hello, Smeagol. He took a few steps away and looked back inquiringly, like a dog inviting them for a walk. Wait a bit, Gollum, cried Sam. Not too far ahead now. I'm going to be at your tail, and I've got the rope handy. No, no, said Gollum. Smeagol promised. In the deep of night, under hard, clear stars, they set off. Gollum led them back northward for a while along the way they had come. Then he slanted to the right, away to the steep edge of the Emyn Muil, down the broken stony slopes, toward the vast fens below. They faded swiftly and softly into the darkness. Over all the leagues of waste before the gates of Mordor, there was a black silence.
Let's just take a moment and appreciate how much more badass Frodo is in the book than in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
I understand the whole heroin junkie thing that they were going for, and that was, good filmmaking, but Jesus, Frodo in the book is so badass.
I think 18-year-old Elijah Wood couldn't have pulled it off. I think there's that too. Like, I don't think he could have been this Frodo, because this Frodo's like a full-grown adult with authority and such.
And everything.
Yeah.
Oh, all the gravitas. But they didn't write him this way either. They wanted him a little more human and vulnerable and stuff, and that's fine. It's fine for film, but every time I read this bit, I'm like, yeah, you know exactly what's going on, and it moves forward the same way. Where when Sam's like, I think he's going to stab us in the back, Frodo's like, yep.
Yeah, obviously. Did that need to be said? Of course he is.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, love it. So you can work from Paeonia, and we'll just be seeing you there. Goodness. Are you going to keep reading? Because we've got like 10 minutes.
Yeah,
5.
I was waiting for you to be done talking.
Okay, good. It sounded like you were finishing up, and I'm like, don't wrap up. Don't do that.
I just finished a chapter.
All right.
I finished a chapter, and you were like, let's take a moment. So I took a moment.
All right. The moment is taken. Keep reading.
Okay.
I want more.
I feel like you may have gone a little overboard with that ankle.
Yeah, that's why I'm trimming it down.
No, I mean, I think you might have trimmed it down a little too far.
Hang on. The angle it was coming in at was weird.
Oh, okay. All right, that makes sense. Cool. Anyway, moving on. Chapter 2, The Passage of the Marshes. I should know better than to question you. Gollum moved quickly, with his head and neck thrust forward, often using his hands as well as his feet. Frodo and Sam were hard put to it to keep up with him, but he seemed no longer to have any thought of escaping, and if they fell behind, he would turn and wait for them. After a time, he brought them to the brink of the narrow gully that they had struck before, but they were now further from the hills. Here it is, he cried. There's a way down inside, yes. Now we follows it, out away over there. He pointed south and east towards the marshes. The reek of them came to their nostrils, heavy and foul, even in the cool night air. Gollum cast up and down along the brink, and at length he called to them. Here, we can get down here. Smeagol went this way once. I went this way, hiding from orcs. He led the way, and following him, the hobbits climbed down into the gloom. It was not difficult, for the rift was at this point only some 15 feet deep and about a dozen across. There was running water at the bottom. It was, in fact, the bed of one of the many small rivers that trickled down from the hills to feed the stagnant pools and mires beyond. Gollum turned to the right, southward more or less, and splashed along with his feet in the shallow stony stream. He seemed greatly delighted to feel the water, and chuckled to himself, sometimes even croaking in a sort of song. The cold hard lands, they bites our hands, they gnaws our feet. The rocks and stones are like old bones, all bare of meat. But stream and pool is wet and cool, so nice for feet. And now we wish, ha ha, what does we wish? He said, looking sidelong at the hobbits. We'll tell you, he croaked. He guessed it long ago, Baggins guessed it. A glint came into his eyes, and Sam, catching the gleam in the darkness, thought it far from pleasant. Alive without breath, as cold as death, never thirsting, ever drinking, clad in mail, never clinking, drowns on dry land, thinks an island is a mountain, thinks a fountain is a puff of air, so sleek, so fair, what a joy to meet. We only wish to catch a fish, so juicy sweet. These words only made more pressing to Sam's mind a problem that had been troubling him from the moment when he understood that his master was going to adopt Gollum as a guide, the problem of food. It did not occur to him that his master might also have thought of it, but he supposed Gollum had. Indeed, how had Gollum been keeping himself in all his lonely wandering? Not too well, thought Sam. He looks fair famished. Not too dainty to try what hobbit tastes like if there ain't no fish, I'll wager. Supposing as he could catch us napping. Well, he won't. Not Sam Gamgee, for one. They stumbled along in the dark, winding gully for a long time, or so it seemed to the tired feet of Frodo and Sam. The gully turned eastward, and as they went on, it broadened and got gradually shallower. At last the sky above grew faint with the first grey of morning. Gollum had shown no signs of tiring, but now he looked up and halted. Day is near, he whispered, as if day was something that might overhear him and spring on him. Smeagol will stay here, I will stay here, and the yellow face won't see me. We should be glad to see the sun, said Frodo, but we will stay here. We are too tired to go any further at present. You are not wise to be glad of the yellow face, said Gollum. It shows you up. Nice sensible hobbits stay with Smeagol. Orcs, nasty things are about. They can see a long way. Stay and hide with me. The three of them settled down to rest at the foot of the rocky wall of the gully. It was not much more than a tall man's height now, and at its base there were wide flat shelves of dry stone. The water ran in a channel on the other side. Frodo and Sam sat on one of the flats, resting their backs. Gollum paddled and scrabbled in the stream. We must take a little food, said Frodo. Are you hungry, Smeagol? We have very little to share, but we will spare you what we can. At the word hungry, a greenish light was kindled in Gollum's pale eyes, and they seemed to protrude further than ever from his thin, sickly face. For a moment he relapsed into his old Gollum manner. We are famished, yes, famished we are, precious, he said. What is it they eat? Have they nice fishes? His tongue lolled out between his sharp yellow teeth, licking his colourless lips. No, we've got no fish, said Frodo. We've only got this, he held up a wafer of lembas, and water, if the water here is fit to drink. Yes, yes, nice water, said Gollum. Drink it while we can. But what is it they've got, precious? Is it crunchable? Is it tasty? Frodo broke off a portion of a wafer and handed it to him on its leaf wrapping. Gollum sniffed at the leaf, and his face changed. A spasm of disgust came over it, and a hint of his old malice. Smeagol smells it, he said. The leaves out of the elf country. Gah, they stinks. He climbed in those trees, and they couldn't wash the smell off his hands. My nice hands. Dropping the leaf, he took a corner of the lembas and nibbled it. He spat, and a fit of coughing shook him. Ah, no, he spluttered. You try to choke poor Smeagol. Dust and ashes, he can't eat that. He must starve. But Smeagol doesn't mind. Nice hobbits. Smeagol has promised. He will starve. He can't eat hobbits' food. He will starve. Poor thin Smeagol. I'm sorry, said Frodo, but I can't help you, I'm afraid. I think this food would do you good if you would try. But perhaps you can't even try. Not yet, anyway. And that is the end of a section.
All right, anyway. Yes. Layers of skirt.
Indeed.
Mwah. Oh, it's funny. I keep starting these here and then finishing them elsewhere. So we'll have to just wait for the official video.
Sometimes it'd be like that.
Oh, yeah. But I think you're onto something. I think the blonde is going to look very cute.
I'm happy I could help. All right, I'm going to go eat some pizza.
That sounds like a wonderful plan, and I will go do whatever I'm doing next. Putting Abby to bed, I think.
Okie doke.
See you Wednesday.
Yes, indeed.
Cuidado.
Llamas.